מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לו אחסר, בינו דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי שובל ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, תשענת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Kerachem av al banim, richem Adonai al yirei av, ki hu yada yitzreinu zachor ki afar anachnu, enosh kechatzir yamav katzitza sadeh, ken yatzitz ki ruach avrabo ve'enenu lo yakirenu od mekomo, V'chesed Adonai me'olam v'ad olam al yire'ah v'tzidkato livnei vanim. As a father has compassion for his children, Adonai has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are but dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them and they are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But the Lord's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones, endures age after age, unchanging. To Jim, Josh, and Jesse, and a whole community of friends of Jan who are here, I want to extend to you my condolences and let you know how very sad we are today to say goodbye to our very good friend, Jan. She had a way of endearing herself to so many of us with warmth and caring and curiosity. Even as her illness progressed, she would talk with you with her special sparkle in her eyes. And she asked about you and your family. It was always a conversation. It was not a pastoral visit. She never complained, certainly not in my presence. She always seemed so very much alive. When I sat with her, I just couldn't imagine that her illness would take her so young. It's a very sad day, honestly, for all of us. I got to know the Jacobson family as they came on a synagogue trip to Israel with me. We all enjoyed the trip together. Jan was a full participant, being who she was, just who she was. She loved the people in her life, and it isn't any surprise to me that her friends were so devoted to her. For one of her clinical trials out of Denver, we had a support vigil here for her that we streamed to her. I know she appreciated the outpouring of support, but it was important for all of us to do anything we could to help her and the family. We missed the family when they moved to Florida for a clinical trial that lasted almost a year. She wanted nothing more than that we should all stay in touch with her, and she is very anxious and happy to be back. Jim, Josh, and Jesse were by her side always. Their devotion to her was an inspiration to the rest of us. Through the duration of her illness, 3 Jacobsons were never far away from her. It breaks my heart to see them mourn for their mother and wife today. How could a woman of valor be taken from us so young? I, for one, will never forget Jan. I can see her in my mind even now. We would talk, and she would smile and laugh and let me know of her appreciation to me and to the community. I never saw her as sick. In my mind, her life and her living fully will always be my memory of her. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for the loss felt by the whole community. May Jan's memory always be as a blessing.
Thank you, Rabbi Dolan, for giving voice to what I think so many of us are feeling right now, and the relationship that Jan had to this community. The psalmist speaks of walking through the valley of the shadow of death, and it is indeed a long and dark valley, but we are here for you. All the people here and so many joining online, I'm sure that will be part of walking that path with you in the days and years ahead. Rabbi Dolan talked about how our friend Jan Jacobson left this world far too soon after a challenging fight with cancer. Yet she left this life much as she had lived it, with thoughtfulness, positivity, kindness, and selflessness to the very end. In the last several months, as her options for treatment evaporated, she made conscientious decisions along with Jim and Josh and Jesse about her medical treatment. More importantly, she resolved to set her affairs in order, connect with her many beloved friends, and share precious moments with her family. She did this with great intentionality. Jan's life and the manner in which her life came to an end should serve as an example to us of a life worthy of praise, a life well lived. Jan was born in 1953 in Plainfield, New Jersey, to Arthur and Gladys Lavenhar. She and her brother Jeff grew up in a loving home, raised to value family and enthusiastic for life itself. She was an energetic and athletic child who swam, did karate, climbed trees, and rode her bike around the neighborhood with baseball cards in the spokes. Jan and Jeff remained close throughout life, and I can see in talking with Jeff just how much he loves and admires his little sister. Jeff told me about how Jan was always a doer who brought enthusiasm and fun to everything she did. She was a serious student and dedicated to her studies, earning 2 degrees in education. In 1976, she fulfilled her dream to live in the Rockies. Though she didn't initially find a job on the Front Range, she taught special education in the Durango area before moving to Denver. Here in Denver, she earned a 2nd degree in educational administration at the University of Denver, and it was around that time, not long after that, that she met Jim through the well-known Denver matchmaker Ruth Epstein at the time. and that big binder of eligible singles. Jim met with Ruth and liked Jan's profile. She seemed fun, loving, beautiful, and energetic. They shared a love of the outdoors and having fun. After their very first date in June 1984, Jan called her mom to tell her she had met the man that she would marry. As usual, Jan was right, and her plans fell into place. Jan and Jim got engaged just 8 months later, and they married on August 11th, 1985. We've all witnessed the love between Jan and Jim. It is an inspiration. They were a team together. Jan did more of the talking, I think, but anyone who knows the Jacobsons, even casually, can see the genuine love and affection between them. Together they built a life and an exceptional family. And Jan had a clear vision of what she wanted. She wanted a family just like the one that she grew up in, and she got her wish. From an early age, she already knew that she wanted her first child to be a son and that she would name him Josh. And Jan worked as a special ed teacher and as a preschool director. She was a dedicated and loving educator who cared about her students. At some point, she realized that she needed to give her attention to Josh and Jesse, and she stopped working. And she took all that love and devotion and dedicated it to her children. She was a diligent mom who happily schlepped her children to their many activities, helped them with their schoolwork, and advocated on their behalf. You'll hear more from Josh and Jesse. Together as a family, the Jacobsons knew how to have fun and enjoy life. Jan and Jim traveled extensively with the kids and enjoyed many outdoor adventures and camping trips. They made memories together on those adventures, memories that Jim, Josh, and Jesse will cherish always. They had fun together and they laughed. Jan was a jokester with an irreverent sense of humor. She was prone to giggling fits that were contagious. Jan was a bundle of love and caring. She not only cared about her children, she embraced her children's friends and was like a second mother to many of them. The family babysitter, Lauren, became a lifelong friend. When Eliav entered the family, she embraced him fully. Jan told me personally many times how much she loved and appreciated you, Eliav. And Jan was thrilled when Josh, during their time in Tampa, found love as well, and she welcomed Nirmal into the family. Jan is beloved by countless dear and close friends. But those of you who knew Jan might be surprised to learn that making friends was not always easy for her. Jeff told me that when she was younger, she actually struggled to connect with others. But being determined and tenacious as she was, she actually took classes and read books on how to make conversation and connect with friends. And what she learned should serve as a lesson to us. She listened with empathy and genuine concern. She actually took notes after conversations so that she could remember details and follow up in the next conversation. She knew the art of sending a thank you note or a gift. As Jan approached the end of her life, she conscientiously reached out to people she loved, and no matter how tired she was enthusiastic to receive friends up until her last days. She shared openly with Jim and her children her feelings. I really think she left nothing unsaid. She even went around the house reviewing all the knickknacks that she cherished and all the family mementos, explaining their history to her children so that they would all know what they meant to her and to whom she wanted to leave them. Jen was the living, beating heart of the Jacobson family. She taught her children about the importance of caring for your family and the way that she cared for her own aging parents. Josh and Jesse emulated the dedication and kindness that they saw their mom do for her parents. I myself witnessed, and so did Rabbi Dolan, the extraordinary ways that Jim, Josh, and Jess formed a team of support around Jan in these last many months. Jan loved her Judaism. Throughout her life, she was dedicated to learning about and practicing Judaism. She took many adult classes with Jim and also on her own. Perhaps one of the most impactful experiences of her life were trips that she took to Israel with the synagogue, and then in 2012 on a women's trip from Denver, where she formed strong bonds with the group and continued to learn and connect with the people from that trip. I'm sure many of you are here today. Jim and Jan were part of a chavurah that has been together for many years. They've celebrated holidays and life events together, and it goes without saying that the chavurah will rally around Jim and the kids. Jan leaves behind a beautiful legacy of wisdom and joy. No doubt that her values will live on in those who loved her and those she loved and influenced. She valued her family and friends above all else. She lived life with humor, fun, and gusto. She nurtured and supported those she loved, plying them with delicious food that she prepared with love. She had impeccable taste and a love for beauty and design. She always sought to better herself and to grow in her kindness and compassion. Despite her illness, Jan never stopped being Jan. She lived by the motto found on the wall of her bedroom: "It's a good day to have a good day." She said that. She said those words up until the day before she went into hospice care. She lived her life consciously and intentionally, and she died that way too. I suspect that Jan died with few regrets. Though I know that one regret was that she would not live long enough to see grandchildren. And I think the other regret was that she wouldn't be around to love and care for Jim. But Jan's love and values will be with you all forever. She will continue to be the beating heart of your family. God willing, if and when you have your own children, I know you will speak of her often and share your memories with them and her values. Jim, Josh, Jesse, Jeff, Eliav, Anna, Nirmal, we are here to support you and walk this path of grief alongside you. Jan spread joy and love to everyone who knew her. She paid it forward, and we will pay it back to you. After a valiant battle, we pray that Jan is now at peace. May the memory of Jan Jacobson live on in all who loved her. May we all learn from her exemplary life. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and let us say, Amen. We now will invite Jan's brother Jeff to share some words with us.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I don't think I realized until I was older, that I was so blessed to have Jan as my little sis. And please let me tell you why. When I was a kid, lots of friends complained that their little sisters were pains. I was puzzled because Jan never was. She didn't take advantage. She never pulled the girl card. She didn't make things up to get me in trouble. Well, almost never. Sure, we had the occasional spat, and sometimes I teased her too much. You guys know what I mean. But during the challenging times, we always took care of each other. We handled adversity together, and there was some adversity growing up in our family. a lot of love in our family. We held secrets together, secrets that died when Jan passed. I was her protector, and she was my nurturer. She was always there for me, always. Jan was nurturing from a young age, and she remained so until she passed. You all know that. As her health failed her, she didn't worry about herself. She worried about her family. She would ask me, "Will you be okay? Will they, the family, be okay? How do I know that? How will we handle this?" She was so ill, yet she continued to plan. She told me that she was relying on me to be there for the family, for Jesse, Josh, and Jim. And I promised her that, and I will always be there. Jan was selfless, always putting others ahead of herself, caring so much about others. My sister, she was always spirited, always looking for the gusto in life. Most of you know that about her too. It began as a young girl, and believe it or not, as a young girl, she was a true tomboy. She was amazing, she was risky, she became a tree climber. We had huge trees, as a lot of you know, back east, big, leafy East Coast trees. And Jan would love to climb and climb up and disappear into the top. It was somewhere she liked to be. She liked heights, I didn't. She would cajole me to join her, but I never got more than halfway up. As a little girl, Jan engaged in all kinds of neighborhood sports and pastimes. She loved softball, she loved playing jacks, remember those? Baseball card flipping, tag, she was faster than me. Jump rope, hopscotch, chasing fireflies. And as Rabbi said, clipping baseball cards to her bike to make it sound like a motorcycle, riding around and around. She liked to brake to skid the back wheel, and she was endlessly aggressive, riding her bike in construction sites, over rocks, through hills. She kind of worried me, but Jan was going to do what she wanted to do, even when she was young. She always reappeared with a thrilled look, and usually she needed as many Band-Aids on her as the boys needed. We attended brother-sister summer camp together in New Hampshire. They were wonderful times. She loved to horseback ride, swim, shoot archery and canoe, play baseball, tie lanyards, and sing. We shared the joy of eating lots of lobster together and getting really messy. And as you probably all know, she loved it. Ever since we were young, we shared a very favorite place in passion, the Jersey Shore. There was nothing like it for us. We both reveled in the sweet and salty smell of the ocean and bay that we only found there. She and I both went to a lot of beaches and a lot of shores in our lives. Nothing was like the Jersey Shore. We loved to play down there, to eat Maine lobster and Jersey blue crab. We body surfed and we rode skimboards together. At night, we played mini golf, walked the boardwalk, and played games for prizes. And we ventured onto some really thrilling amusement rides. My folks weren't around, they just let us go out and do that, just the two of us. Maybe some of you remember the tilt-a-whirl, the ride that went up and spun around, and once I chipped a tooth on that, and Jan, smaller and littler than me, screamed at the ride operator to stop it. Her brother was hurt. On the high-speed merry-go-round, she was still too little to snag the brass rings that were dispensed from the side. And this kind of upset her, so she got off her horse, she got onto mine in front of me, side saddle, and just stretched out as far as she could with me holding on to her, trying to snatch all these rings. Each time the ride ended, she would look up at me, like breathlessly, and say, "Again, again." I drew the line with her at the roller coaster. She went on it, she loved to ride it, she loved the thrills, and she rode it and I would watch her. Jen was always on the go down the shore, resting for one single solitary reason, and it was to work on perfecting her suntan. That was a really high priority for her. Gender never stopped Jan from taking on a challenge, whether athletic or educational. She felt that gender barriers existed to be broken. It was really obvious, and she felt that way ever since she was young. Sometimes she pushed too far, at least for those days. Our mom once drew the line at football. I had gotten the helmet and pads, and Jan so badly wanted a set too. Mom fortunately resisted that one. Regardless, Jan was brave and courageous and became a leader. She was a competitor in everything she did, but a kind competitor. She encouraged friends to do their best always, and she treated opponents with respect. Jan loved pop everything. Pop music, pop clothes, pop hairstyles, pop makeup, pop magazines. In early adolescence, her bedroom was littered with Beatles magazines. To my great disgust, I would watch her kiss Paul's picture, and for a while I thought that my sis had lost it, but she hadn't. It's just being a girl back in those times. She always drew my smile. She was the cutest little girl, running around in her culottes and her pixie hairstyle, craving everything Vidal Sassoon. Jan attended cotillion at our parents' insistence. Our mom was big on Jan learning to ballroom dance, how to carry herself with dignity and grace, and instilling proper manners and virtues of the day. I felt concerned when I first saw her in her cotillion dress, white stockings, black patent leather shoes, and fancy hairdo. I remember it to this day. I realized that my sister, my best friend, was growing up. She was, and she did. The tomboy had become a young lady, but she never lost that zest for life, that spirit. The more things changed over time for us, the more they remained the same, the more connected we became. As she moved into adolescence, Jan became very social, and when boys wanted to date her, I became an obstacle. This was a move that I'm sure she didn't appreciate, yet she looked up to me and loved me so, and I adored her, and I always tried to protect her. Honestly, I so wish I could have protected her from her last illness. Although I know it doesn't make sense, some part of me feels that I let her down because she shouldn't have gone before I did. My firm belief in God tells me that there must have been a reason. I've mentioned in my remarks that Jan was my nurturer, that she was always there for me. We shared secrets and we could talk for hours and hours. When my heart somehow got broken, she helped me unbreak it. She was there. When times were challenging, we held hands as we talked. When I needed refuge, she offered me a safe place. When I felt sad or empty inside, she showed me that I was not alone. When nothing seemed to be going right and I needed a friend, she was there. She'd stay. This only ended very recently when Jan transitioned, earlier this week. This was and is the sister I love so dearly, the one with the huge and beautiful heart and soul. Damas, you are in our embrace, you are in our hearts, and your star will shine forever. Amen.
And first we'll hear from Jesse and then from Josh. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'd like to share with you all a poem that I wrote for my mom and read to her in her final conscious moments. A beautiful woman through and through, do you know how I love you? A heart that's purer than ever could be. A mom who always cared for me. Her tender touch, her undying love. The lessons I learned were far and wide. To always carry myself with pride. To laugh and have fun, soak up the sun. Family is always number one. To see the world and travel afar. To marry someone up to par. To raise a family and put them first. to treat myself well, and follow my thirst. To build a community with Judaism and friends, to care for them both deeply until the end, to always learn, to always grow, to follow my dreams and strive for pro. Of all the gifts you gave to me, above all is being the best friend a friend can be. A gift I give to you is the promise I will be okay. It may be hard, but I will do my best each day. I will celebrate you and our memories. I will live life according to our shared dreams. I will speak of you often and share with my kin, the Nana they never met, but is always with them. I will be sad at times, but it won't be too much, because I will always feel your loving touch.
What a beautiful poem, Jesse. Thank you. And we'll invite Josh up now.
First, I'd like to thank each of the rabbis for their beautiful eulogies, and for they were really an amazing source of, they've been an amazing source of support throughout Jan's illness, visiting her multiple times, including in Florida, and just always there for the family, and I really appreciate your eulogies and support throughout this. Uncle Jeff, thank you so much for sharing so many memories that none of the rest of us were around for, about Mom's early childhood, and you guys have a really beautiful relationship. You've been there for her throughout everything. You've brought her happiness and memories in a way that none of the rest of us are able to. If Jan was feeling down, you're the one who was able to bring her spirits up, and she was feeling down a lot. And it's amazing that even in your time of mourning, you're already fulfilling your promise to her and really, really focusing on being there for us. So thank you. Jesse, as I told you, your poem was, the words that I wish they're the words I wanted to say to her at the end too. And they meant so much to her at the end. And so much so that, the first thing she said when she saw me was, Jesse wrote a poem for me. You have to have her read it again. I want to hear it again. You have to hear it. These beautiful words and beautiful sentiments, and, your relationship meant the world to her, obviously. And Dad, of course, you've always been everything for her. I forget the word she's used, but she's called you, things to me like my lifelong love, my person, etc. And you helped give Jesse and me some of our life during the caregiving times by always going into the hospital every day with her, spending 8 hours a day often at the hospital almost every day, and still checking in with us constantly throughout this, so thank you for that. I should thank Normal and Eliav as well. You've both been amazing sources of support during this, and gone well beyond what anybody could expect from their partners. Thank you both so much. And thank you for everyone here. She had an amazing, community around her. So many of you, braved the situation with COVID, and, sometimes visited her in her room when she couldn't leave bed. And, some of you talked to her every day. And just thank you to everyone who's given her so much happiness and been such a support for our family throughout the years. It's tough to believe that she's right there in front of me. It feels impossible to even try to do justice to my mom, Jan, in just a speech. I can never describe who she really was. Any attempt misses countless treasured anecdotes that beg inclusion, fails to extol too many of her wonderful qualities, and can never really portray the extent of life and spirit that she really imbued into every moment. Feels like the best I can do is to speak to some of her qualities, to paint a fuzzy picture of a small part of who she was, to touch on some of the aspects I found most important, impactful, or admirable, and hope that imagination and time spent with her can provide more color to a still insufficient view of the rest. The first quality of moms I'd like to share is her selflessness. She was really, really incredibly caring. Most people here probably don't have much insight into Jesse's and my childhoods. If you did, you could be forgiven for thinking that much of them was spent while in a car on the road. The license plate read Kid Cab 1, and that van racked up miles like no other did before. If there was an activity, Mom was signing us up for it, encouraging us to be great at it, and helping us build friendships in the car rides along the way. There was soccer for me, soccer for Jesse, hockey, taekwondo, piano lessons for both of us, multiple summer camps, after-school camps, weekend camps, singing lessons, lacrosse practices, golf lessons, chess lessons, math club meets, science fairs, tennis lessons for both of us, baseball practices, basketball practices, cheerleading practices, sports broadcasting camp, which is probably why I can talk a little bit quickly here, swimming meets, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, debate tournaments, and I'm sure a whole lot more. This was on top of unique birthday parties she designed, playdates she scheduled with friends, family camping trips, and multiple yearly vacations that she'd built into the schedule as well. She was endlessly dedicated to giving us every opportunity of all shapes and sizes, and she put in so much work to do so. For years, she worked as a special education teacher, a job she really loved, but that she quit when I was in elementary school. She'd been watching me do my homework and talk about my classes, and she felt like I could be learning more faster than I was. So after a few years of advocating for a more challenging curriculum to be made available to those who wanted it, without as much success as she felt like there needed to be, my mom quit her job teaching to advocate for the availability of gifted and talented courses with more focus. She became the president of CHCAGT, the Cherry Creek Association for the Gifted and Talented. Many parents advocate for their children's education. Very few quit their jobs to do so, and work on it so fervently that their child knows the administrative, gifted, and talented staff at every school so well that they keep in touch for years afterward. Mom was endlessly dedicated to her children. My entire adult life, no matter what day of the week, what time of day, or what she was doing, she picked up every single phone call of mine. Throughout her illness, even when feeling her absolute worst, she focused more on my happiness than her own. Always so unnecessarily apologetic about the time caregiving took, and persistently trying to get me to spend less time on her and more time on myself. She dedicated her life to helping us find success, to ensuring we found happiness, to making sure we were always cared for. Her love for us was boundless. Her selflessness was truly unlimited. The second quality of Mom's that I'd like to share is her sense of humor. With apologies to my family, my friends, my partner, Mom was far and away the most fun person I've ever known. It's tough to overstate just how fun-loving and sometimes goofy she really was. One of my favorite stories is from when she and I went around New York City together before I moved there. Per the recommendation of nearly everybody, we went to the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. It started off with something like a blank white wall, followed by barrels filled with water, and topped off by a wheelbarrow filled with popcorn. My apologies to anyone here who may appreciate modern art. I'd actually really enjoy speaking to you someday and learning to appreciate it myself. But Mom and I were not aficionados, at least not in, a traditional sense. We found the blank wall curious. The barrels filled with water that were supposedly highly admirable were to us humorous. And by the time we got to the wheelbarrow full of popcorn, my mom couldn't hold it in anymore. She looked at me and burst out laughing, a laughter we then tried to hide because it stuck with us all the way through the museum, with each piece funnier than the last. Finally, we came to enormous projector screens that showed elephants walking around in a white room. After a couple minutes of watching this, Mom turned to me and said, "Wait here." She then proceeded to walk behind the screens such that she blocked a small part of the projected video. She hunched over, put her hands in her armpits, and walked behind it like a gorilla. She returned to me not knowing if this had had any impact or not, if it had worked, but I assure you it had. Every single person in that room of the museum was chortling. As soon as she learned of its success, and emboldened by the widespread appreciation, Jan proceeded to do pirouettes behind the screen, followed by walking as if she was an elephant as well, followed by what I'm calling various dance moves, but was really her going behind the screen and going like this. All of these blocking a small piece of the projection of the elephants in the room. She definitely successfully managed to upstage a piece of work that had made it into the MoMA, with everyone there loudly laughing, and a group of Swedish tourists actually came up to us to share that her antics were the highlight of their trip to New York. Yeah. And in addition to this, I also have some excellent videos of her dancing and lip-syncing opera music alongside a singing cartoon fish at the Contemporary Art Museum here in Denver. When not in public, Mom would send me videos of her singing goofy songs while wearing various funny items around the house as a hat, would start addictive laughing fits that you've heard about multiple times now that would have Jesse, her brother Jeff, and myself struggling for air as we laughed and cried uncontrollably. And she found a multitude of opportunities to make every funny face she could possibly think of. When masks for COVID got in the way, that didn't stop her. She'd grab one of those masks that look like duck bills and quack while walking through the hospital to her treatments. It's probably no surprise that my nickname for her was the humorous Mama Llama. And for good reason. She'd sometimes hilariously, instantly respond to the moniker with different caricatures of what an actual llama would do. We had a blast traveling around the world with vacations to Europe and Asia, going to concerts and a number of Broadway shows, and always exploring the best restaurants we could find. She had such a unique ability to bring fun to countless situations, which truly brightened everybody's time with her. It's a tall task to try to describe the wonderful things about my mom in such a short time frame, and I expect I could speak about her endlessly. She impressed me with her willingness to improve, taking on a vigorous workout routine for the first time at age 62. That after a couple of years for her was easy, but I truly couldn't complete myself. That's when I was more unfit than I am today. She called Jesse and I out on our shortcomings, which sometimes was sorely needed, and helped us realize that we weren't the best versions of ourselves, and provided guidance to help make needed transitions. While sometimes stubborn, she was remarkable at adjusting her perspective to understand and empathize with others' points of view, changing her mind often in response. She accepted all of us for who we were, loved us boundlessly, and made our lives full of love, laughter, care, and the security that only comes from a loving family. So many of the qualities I value most in myself are those I learned from her example. I can't describe how much emptier and sadder a world without my mom is to me. One of her foremost wishes was that she live on, that we think of her often, that in times of uncertainty we look to her example, and that we seek to find ways to bring that light, love, and laughter in where she otherwise would have. It's a task I'll never even come close to succeeding at nearly as well as she did, but I'm so appreciative to have had the world's best example to aspire to. I'll love you forever, Mom, and you'll live on forever. Thank you so much for all that you are.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you to all of you for sharing wonderful and heartwarming stories. And I know that many of you will share your memories at Shiva during Shiva. Before we conclude the service here and proceed to Emmanuel Cemetery at Fairmont, I want to let you know that that the Jacobson family will be receiving visitors today from 3:30 to 7 p.m. at Jesse and Eliav's home. You have information provided by Feldman Mortuary. So today will be only visitation, 3:30 to 7. There will not, because of the observance of Shabbat, there's no service this evening at the home. Tomorrow night, after Shabbat, we'll convene at 7 o'clock with the service at 8:30 and visitation through 9:30. On Sunday and Monday, there will be visitation from 5:30 to 8:30 with a Shiva Minyan at 6 p.m. on each of those nights. For those who are joining remotely, there will be an opportunity to do that for the Sunday evening Minyan, which will also be in person and have remote access. I want to kindly ask you to please respect the Jacobsons' requests around COVID precautions. We ask that visitors all be vaccinated. If you're going to visit at the home, that you are please vaccinated, and that masks should be worn both indoors and outdoors at here, the cemetery, and during the Shiva Minyanim. We also, I think those are all the requests. And the final request is that when we exit today, that please allow the family to make their way to Fairmont Cemetery. They request that please not to receive greetings right now. There will be an opportunity for that later. We'll ask you all to please rise and as we conclude the service with a memorial prayer.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen B'Meromim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'Malot Keroshim Uterim, Kezar Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Chaya Sara Bat Asher Yisayach Beyachid Edis Shelcha Leolama Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Ana Bal Harachamim הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen.
El Malei Rachamim, exalted and compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. To the soul of Jan Jacobson, known in our tradition as Chaya Sara Bat Asher Yosel Halevi V'Yached Idis, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that Jan find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May she rest in peace, and let us say amen. That concludes our service here at HEA. We will be proceeding to Fairmount Cemetery, Emmanuel Cemetery at Fairmount.
Just some quick instructions regarding that. We will have a procession. If you'd like to join us in that procession, an escorted procession, we'll ask you to start heading on Ivanhoe north, ask you to turn on your headlights and your hazards. That will indicate that you are in our procession. If you're not going to the cemetery, if we can ask you to please give way to those who are, and if maybe if we can ask you just to go 1 block to the west to Holly Street. We'll use Ivanhoe for the procession. Everyone else, if we can ask you to use Holly. An important thing is, again, to ask you to stay in your places as we escort the casket and the family out.